Hello and welcome to this course on Microsoft Azure Data Fundamentals. Now, this course you don't need to know anything about databases, you don't need to know anything about Microsoft Azure. We are just going to start at the very beginning and go to the end. But how far do we need to go for this course? Well, I'm taking the cue from Microsoft. Microsoft have a range of exams, the DP exams. So you can see you can become an Azure Data Scientist Associate Certified, or an Azure Data Administrator Associate, or an Azure Data Engineer Associate. These are more advanced level courses. You can see they are marked as intermediate. In this course, we're going to start right at the beginning, and this is a beginner level course for DP-900. So what is in this course? Well, what I'm going to be doing is following the requirements for this particular certification. So you can see you will, by the end of this course, have fundamental knowledge of core data concepts and how they are implemented. So this is ideal for you if you want to work with data in the cloud or just want to know more about it. Now, I'm not allowed to show you any of the exam questions. And according to the non-disclosure agreement, I'm not allowed to provide you access to disclosing, distributing, copying, photocopying. There's so much there. So how am I able to get the particular level of this particular course? Well, I'm going to be using MeasureUp.com. MeasureUp.com is the official host of Microsoft practice exams. And so DP-900, there is an official Microsoft practice test for that. So it allows me to see what level you need to know to get this particular certification. And in reality, it's actually a bit higher than I thought I was going to have to teach to start with for this course. So it's been very useful. So what skills do you need? Well, you need to understand core data concepts, such as core data workloads and analytics core concepts. You need to be able to work with relational data. So this is the standard, for instance, SQL Server database. Though, as we'll see, there are lots of different types of databases, 6 that we'll be looking at. So not only do we need to understand the workloads, we need to describe them, we need to identify basic management tasks such as how to set them up, what data security and basic connectivity issues you might have, and how you can actually query them. We also need to know SQL language, and if you don't already know that, then we'll be brushing up on that, starting again, as I say, right at the beginning, but because it's not a major part of this exam, we will just be looking at it in a fairly summary manner. But don't worry, there are core exercises that will enable you to work out whether you have learnt sufficient of the select statement and its 6 principal clauses, select from, where, group by, having, and order by for this exam. So if relational data is the standard SQL Server, what is non-relational data? Well, there's 2 sorts. There's semi-structured data and there's non-structured data. So semi-structured data in this course uses Azure Cosmos DB. And there are 5 different types of Cosmos DB that they call APIs. That's Application Programming Interfaces. And we'll be going through 2 of those in depth and 3 of them a bit more summary. But there's also non-structured data. For example, your files. If you upload files onto Azure, there's not necessarily a structure. They can be interpreted by a program that can open them, but there's no native structure for a PDF or an Excel document that is fairly obvious to just anyone looking at it without knowing that it's an Excel document or PDF. So we'll be looking at table, blob, that's binary large object, and file storage. And again, we'll be looking at basic management tasks. The next section is analytics workloads. And so we'll be looking at a series of services that are available on Microsoft Azure for this. So we start off with Azure Data Factory, Azure Data Lake, Synapse or Synapse Analytics, Databricks and HD Insight. And then we have to look at Power BI, so the way to visualize, the way to get graphs and tables and other things from your databases. Now, it does say right at the beginning that this list is not definitive or exhaustive. And so again, that's when I've used the sort of questions that have come up in the MeasureUp practice test to expand this list. For example, this list doesn't include SQL Server Integration Services, SQL Server Analytics, or Analysis Services. So I have expanded this so that you should be able to answer, with a lot of revision, every single question in this practice test through this course. So what is the structure of this course? Well, normally these skills measured do not make a particularly good structure. They start off with skills which are not the ideal ones to start off with. And this isn't too bad. This first section is better put in the other sections. So for instance, when we're looking at data visualization, that's best if we put that into Power BI, which is all about visualization. So if we ignore this first section, we will be starting off by working with relational data. And the way we will do that is, first of all, we will get a free trial for Azure. So this needn't cost you any money. So we'll get about a $200 credit. And if you keep an eye on the costs, then this shouldn't cost you a penny in Azure. Now, for making this course, it cost me about $10–15 of my credit, so it didn't cost me a single cent. However, make sure that you close any services once you've finished using them, and I'm afraid I'm not responsible for any overspend that you might have. So we're going to start this course by looking at Azure SQL database. So we will be creating that. So with some sample data, we'll do this fairly swiftly. We will then be using this Azure SQL database to create select statements. And we've got some coding exercises there. Then we'll be querying these tables and views and so forth. Then we'll have a look at what sort of relational data structures are. And you can see there are plenty of quizzes, so you can be sure at each stage that you are learning. It's only then, once we've exhausted one particular type of database, that we'll be going away from Azure SQL database. We'll revisit it because when we installed the Azure SQL database, it was at a very swift level. So now we'll be looking at it in more detail. We'll be looking at other types of Azure SQL and then looking at other Azure databases for PostgreSQL, MySQL and MariaDB. Then we'll be looking at how we can provision, deploy, look at data security, look at authentication and authorization. Following that, we'll be looking at semi-structured data and then non-structured data. And again, basic management tasks. Then we'll be looking at analytics workloads. We'll start off by looking at it just in concept. So we won't actually be using Azure for this to begin with. And then we'll have a look at how we can implement it in Azure. And then finally, we'll have a look at Power BI. So that is the curriculum. So as I say, we'll be looking at this first section in videos to come, work with related data for Azure, and then non-related analytics workloads. And we'll be fitting in this core data concepts in the other sections. Now, what I've done with these course requirements is I have numbered them. So we have numbers from 1 onwards. And you'll see when you have a look at the curriculum for this course that I have used these individual numbers as part of the title. So you can go, okay, I'm doing number 50, describe the workflow in Power BI. Yes, I've now done it. So you can be sure that you are learning the requirements for this particular exam. And you can download a copy of this document from the resources section, which is coming up very shortly in this course. In the next video, I'm going to show you why this course is a bit different from all the other courses that I have made. And this is a mashup.